before?
So as everyone's joining in, yeah, let's do that. And fam, North Noters, pop into the chat and just let Amy know that you're here and give her your name, your pronouns, and if you've done past life regression before, and maybe like a word of how you're feeling, just so she can get a temperature read for the group. I know some of us had, a lot of us had not, so just pop that into the chat. Taylor's been waiting and she showed up early for the call. So she was like ready to go, which I love.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Rachel's never done one. Awesome. A lot of excitement. Good. First timers.
Yeah, lots of first timers. And this is a very, very intelligent crowd, super geniuses. And also pretty much everyone is like a hyper intuitive empath. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good crew.
Very sensorial. Did a group regression with Brian Weiss. That's London. Awesome. Yeah, so Brian, Dr. Weiss is my teacher. Actually did my certification with him. And so if you've done a regression with him, whether it was virtually or in person, the verbiage is very similar. The layout is similar as well. We've got some Chicagoans here. I'm from Chicago. Hi. Hi, town. I grew up in Skokie and Morton Grove and then lived in the city for about 10 years. Oh, Evanston, what's up? So fun. So we have an eclectic group here. Some have not, but everyone is here. And if you're here, that means you're open and ready. And that's all that matters, right? So exciting. Someone a couple of weeks ago in a group retreat, a virtual retreat, because if you were in a real life one, that sounds amazing. And I'm very jealous.
Right, other people, it sounds so luxurious.
Yeah, definitely. Barrington, so great and international here. So fun. What a great group, Michelle.
They're the best. They are the best part of my week and my day, most days. So
really, I believe it.
Yeah.
So I definitely want, we'll see as more people log in, I definitely want to really use up the bulk of the time in regression. So some of you have shared whether or not you've done past life regression. Have any of you done hypnosis? Has anyone here done hypnosis before?
Give us like a thumbs up or
yeah, thumbs up works too. Let me take a look here. Yeah, thumbs. Good. All right, and so the reason why I asked that is because hypnosis is a technique that's used really just for deep relaxation. And hypnosis is really all about your attention. Hyper-focused attention is really what hypnosis is. So it's really nothing to be scared about, although when you hear hypnosis or hypnotist, you often see something that's kind of like a show, like someone's going to put you under control and make you do silly things, or you're going to act a certain way at the sound of something or at a certain word. And really anyone who is acting that way under hypnosis is because exactly, balk like a chicken, exactly. They're doing that because they want to, but really we're hypnotized in many ways. So when you're on your phone for hours and suddenly you're like, whoa, like 2 hours just went by, that's hypnosis. You're just super focused on one thing that everything else kind of fell away. Same thing even with driving, highway hypnosis. You can go from point A to point B and suddenly you're at B and you're like, whoa, I don't even really remember the drive. And so I'm mentioning that because the hypnosis technique I'll use is body scanning. And so it's very common even in meditation. Body scanning is a type of meditation as well, where you're just so focused on connecting to your body, different body parts, the sensations, the feelings, maybe emotions that are coming up. At the same time that I'm leading you through the body scan, you're also really focused on my voice. And that's how we're then connecting, and you're allowing yourself to be guided. But at the same time that you're listening to me, you're also still under full control. So during the past life regression, if you feel like you need to use the restroom, please get up and do that. That is so distracting to try to like push that down or up, I guess, when you're in it, because that will get you out of the senses of really being in that moment of the memory. And so if you need to move your body, if you need to take a drink of water, if something comes up for you and it feels really intense and you just need to open your eyes to ground and feel embodied back into the present, you do that. So you're in full control throughout the whole thing. We're just using hypnosis to get you into a place of openness and of relaxation. And so before I go into any other details, Michelle, is there anything that you wanted to mention before I get into it?
No, I think that we're good. I think we can dive in, and
Okay.
you guys all feel empowered, or if you don't feel empowered, let me empower you to chime in and ask your questions, unmute yourself and just hop on in. So you feel ready, and like there's nothing lingering when we get started.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So I see here a question from Karen regarding sitting or laying down. It's completely up to you. Comfortability is all up to you. And remember, if you start in one position and it becomes uncomfortable, you can always change. And so typically my clients are laying down, but if you want to be sitting up, it's completely up to you. And so before you do get into that comfortable position, there's a few things that I just want to mention so that we all are in the same understanding. I don't want to set too many expectations, but I do want to set some kind of like understanding as to where you may go and flow with the past life regression. So first and foremost, why this even is helpful is we have an opportunity to connect to a part of our brain that we don't access all the time. And everything that we experience on a daily is stored in our minds. And even from the womb, even from before the womb into the past lives. And so we store this, but we don't always access it, particularly if it's something that may have created trauma or stress to our body and to our mind. And so what the mind and what the body does is it wants you to feel comfortable, doesn't want you to, it creates defense and coping mechanisms. And the defense and coping mechanism could be that you don't even remember that that had occurred. But what we do in a past life regression is we'll go through certain memories. We'll start at a current lifetime, then we'll go into the womb, we'll go into the birth, and then we'll go into past life. And then depending on the timing of it, we'll go into life between lives. And the reason why we go kind of strategically step by step going down then into the past life is so that the mind feels comfortable with the skill of just remembering, because truly that's what you're doing. In a past life, when you are trying to tell your mind, okay, I need to remember something that happened in another lifetime, the mind could say, that's impossible, it's illogical, you can't do that. How do I categorize that? How do I organize it? And so if we can just remember what happened today or yesterday or a year ago or your 18th birthday or something in childhood, then the mind is like comfortable with this because like, oh, I can remember what I did yesterday. I can remember what I did my last birthday. And so then it starts to feel comfortable with the process that then we can start to go deeper and deeper and deeper, then finally into that past life. And the reason why then we want to go into the past life, although there's healing that occurs in all those different stages of memory, is because perhaps there's something occurring right now in your life in which that you want some clarity. Maybe something is occurring continuously, a pattern, a habit. And maybe you have done the work of trying to understand where it comes from in this lifetime, or maybe you haven't. And the answer just doesn't feel satiating enough. Like it just doesn't, it's not hitting the mark. The pattern doesn't change in relationships and work and health. And you keep repeating this certain pattern. Or maybe you have an affinity for something. You're really great at something. You have no idea where that comes from. It's not in your lineage that you know of. Or maybe you have a certain phobia or fear that seems irrational to you and you have no idea where that came from either. And in this lifetime, it doesn't make sense as to why you hold these things either, these patterns or habits. And so you want to maybe understand, did I carry it from another lifetime into this lifetime? And the way that Dr. Weiss explains that is really, if we look at days and lifetimes as micro and macro, that in a day, you do your thing. At the end of the day, maybe you assess. You take a moment and say, you know what, that was really awesome what happened today. I would love for that to happen again tomorrow, or keep that going. Or, you know what, I'd really love to change that for tomorrow. You go to bed, you wake up, you change your clothes. In quarantine, maybe you don't change your clothes, but typically you change your clothes. And then maybe from go, you're like, you know what, I said I was going to do it differently today. Or I want to take something that I did from yesterday and do it again today. Or maybe you don't, and you go throughout the day and suddenly it's 4 p.m. and you're like, oh, wait, I remembered. Or someone triggers you in some way to remind you of like, oh, yes, that's what I plan to do today. Or maybe you don't remember at all. And then you're at the end of that day and then you remember and you're like, oh, that's right, I'm going to do it differently. Okay, I'll try to remember tomorrow. And then on and on and on. Same thing with lifetimes, because time isn't linear, right? It's past, present, future is happening compounding, like all on top of itself. And so in a past lifetime, it's the same idea. At the end of that lifetime, you assess, you say, I'm going to take this with me or I'm not. You go into a new lifetime, change your clothes, right? Your body. And then maybe you remember from birth, and then conditioning happens, cultural paradigms occur, socialization occurs, and you forget. Or then maybe you run into someone and you become partners with them in some way, and they do things that trigger you to remember, ah, yes, I'm supposed to do it differently. Or I remember I had this skill that I took from somewhere and I'm going to exercise that. Or maybe you don't, and you go into the end of that lifetime and then you remember that you're going to do it differently. So this is where you can kind of see how past lives can help in the day-to-day basis, because if you can understand where the root cause of what you're experiencing today, which is an effect, which is a symptom of something that had occurred either in this lifetime or past lifetime, and you come into that understanding and that knowing, that changes the script, right? Because time isn't linear. If you change the script in the past, into the present, into the future. And that's how past lives can be so helpful, because then you gain that clarity and you realize, wait, that's not me today. I'm taking an attribute from my past, thinking that when someone does that, it triggers that in my neuroplasticity, right? Triggers that in my mind. So then I react with that defense or coping mechanism as if I am that person in the past, but that's not me any longer. I can choose who and what I give power to today and say, yes, there's some attributes from the past I want to take forward and some that I do not. And so this is your opportunity to remember that in this lifetime and to change the script. So it could be this really profound shift and change. But what people also find too is that you just realize that in some form or fashion, we've all been one another. You go into certain past lives where you're completely nothing like how you are right now. And it could be the person who's triggering you and that personality. It's the same thing that you were in the past and so forth. So we find that there's this just really beautiful connection that we have to everyone. But everyone's experience is different in the past life regression. And I just want to remind you, particularly for those who've done this, doing this for the first time, to not expect that you're going to reach a past life. Like, throw that away. Because the more that you push yourself to try to make yourself remember or go into a specific past life, particularly if someone has told you, oh, you probably were this in a past life, or you have like a mindset of like, oh, I must have been that, don't try to make yourself conform to that. Just really go into it with any possibility, and the experience is that much more fun when you go into it that way. So that being said, a couple of things, two more things to mention, is that some people go into it really wondering if it has to be very visual. Like they go into it saying, I can't see anything. And what's important is that we all learn in different ways. So for some people, sounds can come in stronger, or feelings, sensations, emotions hit you first before you can visualize. So throughout, I'm going to be constantly telling you to use your senses. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you feel? What are the sensations in your body? So that you are getting a full sensorial experience and not just focusing on it having to play out like it's a movie where some people think that that's what it's supposed to be like. So use all your senses. And another thing too is remembering that the left side of our mind, that more of the logical, rational side, is going to be saying to you, this doesn't make sense. You're making this up. You heard this, you saw this from somewhere, you read in a book, you saw it in a movie, someone told you this. This is your imagination. You're just creating this. This isn't real. And that's just what it's meant to do, because it's trying to categorize, right, and organize and try to make sense of what you're experiencing. So just like in meditation, for any of us who meditate, when those thoughts, right, are coming through, you just say, okay, that's my mind doing what it needs to do, but I don't need to engage with those thoughts. I choose which thoughts I want to engage with. And so the only thought that I really want you to choose, per se, is the very first one that comes up for you. So when I say, like, is there a color? The first color that comes up for you, free associate, that's the one you stick with. What do you hear? The first sound that you hear, stick with that. Because the second that you question the first one that comes up, the logical mind is going to start with saying, well, maybe it's this, and this, and why are you seeing it that way? And who's that for? And is that yours? It's going to start to just create so many more thoughts that then you have to like work against that. So instead, just really try to stick with the very first thought that comes up for you when I ask a certain question.